Today, we're diving into a really powerful story. It's about perception, about sacrifice, and a lesson that was learned way, way too late. It's the story of a father, his son, and a single devastating secret that would end up defining both of their lives.
So let's just start with this. These are brutal words, right? Spoken by a young boy named Raju about his own father. This one sentence, it's really the heart of our story. It sets the stage for a whole lifetime of pain and misunderstanding. So, what on earth could make a son feel this way?
Okay, so our story begins with what seems like a simple flaw, but it's really a matter of love and appearance that just spirals into something so much deeper.
So let's meet our characters. We've got Ignath. He's a poor laborer from a small village, and he's missing one eye. And then there's his son, Raju, who he absolutely adores. But here's the problem. Because of his father's appearance, the other kids in the village, well, you know how kids can be. They shun Raju. And this rejection, it plants this seed of shame in the young boy, a shame that he points directly at his dad.
And this is where you really see the tragic disconnect. On one side, you have Ignath, quietly scrimping and saving every single rupee he earns. Not for himself, no, but for Raju's education. He has this dream that his son will become a doctor. But on the other side, Raju is living in a completely different world, one that's consumed by the embarrassment he feels because of his father.
So as Raju gets older, that childhood shame doesn't just go away. If anything, it hardens. It becomes this pattern of really cruel, intentional rejection that just gets worse and worse over time.
And here we have the first major turning point. Picture this. Ignath, just being a loving dad, brings Raju his lunchbox because he forgot it. But instead of a thank you, he gets hit with this public explosion of anger and humiliation from his own son. Raju just snatches the lunch and tells his dad to never, ever come back.
So, years go by. Raju heads off to college in another town, and his entire education, it's all funded by his father's back-breaking work. His parents even end up moving to the same town just to be a little closer and to earn some extra money for his expenses. But all that time and distance, it hasn't changed a thing about how Raju feels.
The denial just gets deeper. So one day, Ignath visits Raju's college house, and Raju's friends ask who this man is. And what does Raju do? He lies. He calls his own father a workman. He completely denies him, all because his friends made a comment about how his father's one eye was scary.
You know, you'd think this would be a wake-up call. At least one of his friends sees what's happening. He actually calls Raju out on it, reminding him that this man he's so ashamed of is the whole reason he's even in college. But it doesn't work. The shame is just too deep. Raju just lashes out at his parents all over again and tells them to stay away. And this brings us to the climax of the story. After years of these small, cruel rejections, Raju commits his final, most devastating act of abandonment. This is really the point of no return.
So, Raju graduates, he gets a job in Mumbai, and then, for 5 years, just disappears. Crickets. He cuts off all contact with the parents who gave him everything. He builds a whole new life, a secret life, with a wife and a kid that his parents have no idea even exist.
And then, the twist. A friend tells Ignath that Raju isn't in Mumbai at all. He's been living right there, in the same town, this whole time. Raju's mother, Sharda, she begs Ignath to go see him. She's convinced that surely being a father himself must have changed Raju's heart.
But nothing has changed. Ignath shows up at the house, full of hope, only to have his own granddaughter, who he's never met, scream in fear at his appearance. She calls him a monster. It's just a devastating echo of the same shame Raju felt as a kid. And instead of comforting his daughter or explaining anything, Raju uses her fear like a weapon. He actually validates her reaction, using it as the final excuse to throw his father out of his life for good. Never come here again, he says, and Ignath, absolutely heartbroken, just leaves.
But hold on, because the story is not over. Not by a long shot, because now, after a lifetime of shame and rejection, we are finally about to learn the truth about Ignath's eye. And believe me, it changes everything.
So, after yet another friend tries to talk some sense into him, Raju feels this pang of guilt and finally decides to visit his parents. But when he gets there, he finds only his mother. His father, Ignath, he died within a week of that last, humiliating visit. He was too late.
So this all comes down to the one question that's been hanging over this entire story. Why did his father only have one eye?
Roger always just assumed it was some flaw he was born with. But was it?
The answer is no. And the truth is as simple as it is devastating. Ignath wasn't born with one eye. He gave his eye to Raju.
His mother just lays it all out. When Raju was just a little kid, 3 years old, he had an accident while playing. He lost his eye. And his father, without even a second thought, donated one of his own so that his son could see the world with 2 eyes. The very thing that Raju hated his father for, the source of all his shame, was actually his father's greatest act of love, his greatest sacrifice.
And with that absolutely gut-wrenching revelation, we get to the story's powerful, tragic moral. A lesson about love, about blindness, and about a debt that can now never be repaid.
The irony is just crushing, isn't it? The son who couldn't even bear to look at his father's face now realizes he has been looking at the world through his father's own eye his entire life. He's hit with the full weight of his cruelty, and there's nothing left for him but a lifetime of regret.
So in the end, in an act of repentance, Raju takes his mother to live with him. He finally starts to take on the responsibility he ran from for so long. He finally understands the depth of his father's love, but only after the man who literally gave him his sight is gone forever.
And that really just leaves us with one final thought. Raju's story is obviously an extreme example, but it forces you to ask, doesn't it? What sacrifices made by the people who love us do we just fail to see in our own lives? And what things that we see as flaws are actually the marks of the deepest kind of love?